The global Genshin community has lost the plot. Regardless of where you lie on the issues the community is facing, we can probably all agree on that. Think about that though. You think the other side's lost the plot, the other side thinks you have lost the plot. So everyone has lost the plot, regardless of where you may fall. So let's get things back on track. We've all seen it by now, the infamous screenshot. To thank you for the past year, we'll be giving you 3 wishes. There's been quite a lot of discontent with Genshin lately, from Honkai Star Rail getting everything Genshin players have been asking for the past 3 years, to artifact loadouts that aren't artifact loadouts. Things had been slowly moving closer to the edge, and that statement was the final push for everything to start crashing down. The CN community started to push back. They unfollowed Genshin social media in the millions and review bombed them like their name was Nagasaki. Now, I want to be clear, I was hyped about 4.4. Gaming and Xianyun looked really fun. The Lantern Rite quest is always a good time for me. Seeing the twins together, finally getting to experience Shinyu Vale after it's been teased for so long, and the same rewards we got for Lantern Light last year that I didn't and frankly still don't have a problem with. And on top of that, 4.3 was probably my least favorite patch since I started playing 2 years ago. It was carried entirely by the new characters, and that's not a good state for the game to be in. If you didn't pull Navi or Shev and had already completed the previous exploration and story content, the cope to push through those 6 weeks must have been exhausting. So I think my hype to actually have something to do again is pretty justified. Now you might hear that and assume I'm not in favor of the protest, but that's not true. I can be satisfied with the game and be dissatisfied with Hoyo's business practices. If Hostess tortured monkeys, it wouldn't change how Twinkies taste. The reason I waited so long to throw my 2 cents in is because I was waiting for their response. I'm still waiting, and that's unacceptable. In the face of such discontent, their lack of response shows an utter disregard for their consumers' interest. Because of that, I don't think anyone in good faith should award them their trust, and most importantly, their business until they can prove otherwise. So here's what I'm doing, and you might think it's stupid, but I was brought up in a time when my history teachers weren't afraid of offending someone by talking about historical protests that worked. I, for the past 4 days, have been performing a digital sit-in in Genshin. I have set all my settings as low as possible, changed my name to free-to-play until change, and my bio to if you want Hoyo to listen to global, make them. And for the first time since I started playing, I didn't get the battle pass. Like I said, you might think that's stupid, but imagine for a moment if when a player hit the co-op tab, every name that showed up was expressing their discontent with Hoyoverse. Imagine their servers being clogged down with people sitting in game, doing nothing, and refusing to spend money. It'd be kind of hard for Hoyo to ignore us then, wouldn't it? By the way, while we're on the nature of protest, don't go to Honkai Star Rail instead. That's like protesting Walmart by going to the Walmart neighborhood market. Now, back to the issues with the community. We were on a good track. As much as I disliked the guy, Tectone was doing a really good job of taking the helm and spreading awareness of the issue. Content creators were speaking out and letting their audiences know how the protests were justified and that they understood their audience's discontent. But then Xianyun dropped and every single one of them went back to making guides like nothing happened. Now, I realize that people don't understand the gravity of the word protest quite as well as they used to, so I'll spell it out for you. If you are a content creator and you did this, you are a scab. Does that word have your attention? You cannot say, yeah, good job protesting this company, and then go do marketing for them. Now, anyone that knows me knows that was really, really hard for me to say. I am painfully non-confrontational, but it has to be said, because clearly y'all either don't get it, or you're two-faced snakes that were chasing the algorithm because Tectone made it trend. And hold on tight, because it only gets worse from here. In all likelihood, this is the death of my channel. I've seen what happens when someone takes the names of Tectone or Atsu in vain. Channel blows up for a bit because Tectone stands and Genshin Twitter go to war in the comments. All the viewers that watched your content before leave to avoid the drama, and the channel dies when they find something else to latch onto. But you know what? I'm doing it anyways because this is important to me. But what about their livelihoods? Do you honestly think they need to make guides to make money on Twitch and YouTube? You can take one look at my channel, which had 50 subs last year, mind you, and see there are other ways to get views. These channels have 100 times my subscriber base. I think they'll be fine. The player base isn't as ride or die for either building the best team, filling out the waifu Pokedex, or appreciating Genshin for its lore as you might think. If you put out something that looks interesting, Genshin fans will watch it. I put out everything from game mechanics to team building to lore, and I've seen nothing but growth on my channel. But it's not enough to just say it, so here are some ideas for videos that will still ride the algorithm so you can still get your bag without being a scab. In-game changes that will save Genshin. Genshin quality of life updates that need to happen. Top changes needed for new and returning Genshin players. How to beat Spiral Abyss without Xianyun or Gaming. That last one's free content because this cycle, despite what I Went to Lose said, is so easy. Those of you that put out videos saying Xianyun is trash aren't off the hook either. If you have to lie and manipulate your audience to get them to support your cause, all that does is show you don't believe in the cause as much as you let on. You're no better. It's real simple. Just don't promote the character. I know I'm letting you all down by not putting out a guide, but this is really important to me, and I hope you can understand that and join me in this fight to save the game we all love. And yes, the game is in danger, but I'll touch on that later. Next, we have to talk about the drama. Tectone, I'm speaking directly to you. You are being baited into talking about drama to draw attention away from the protest. You've become the figurehead of it. If you aren't talking about it, things don't seem as bad as you made them out to be. You don't think those other creators know what happens when Tectone has an issue with them? Atsu and the clique are really just throwing themselves under the bus for Hoyoverse to get you to stop talking about the issues with the game and the company. And Atsu, why would you do that to yourself? Aren't you supposed to be the 50-year-old granddaddy of Genshin? That doesn't seem wise. It's just a couple of death threats. It's not like the president of this multi-billion-dollar company faced an assassination attempt from one of these fans. Sure, I'll take the fall so you don't have to acknowledge you've messed up. Count on me. But hey, maybe y'all aren't convinced that Hoyo needs to do anything. So let's refocus so I can give a better look at just how much of a catastrophe things are at the company right now. I'm about to show you some stuff Hoyo definitely doesn't want you to know, and it's about to become painfully clear why they aren't publicly traded. I've compiled the aggregate data for Hoyoverse's reported revenue from Sensor Tower obtained by Gacha Revenue, and the monthly sales data of the CN iOS market for both Genshin and Honkai Star Rail since their respective launches through Genshin Lab. I'll have the sheet linked in the description if you're curious about the data and my methodologies. The first thing I'd like to point out is right here. In December, the CN iOS market spent $40 million on Honkai Star Rail. But Hoyo's reported revenue for Honkai Star Rail in the month of December was $28 million. That's 145% their reported revenue. So, how is it possible that they made more money in that single market than they made in all markets combined? It's called bootstrapping, and it's a perfectly legal method almost every larger company does to limit their revenue to avoid certain taxes. However, typically, that lost revenue will go into something like hiring new employees, giving bonuses to CEOs, marketing, obtaining liquid assets, things you'd expect a company to do. But Hoyo put it into microtransactions on their own game to make the sales look higher than they actually were. They squandered their revenue on a digital currency that has no trade value. Allegedly. Think about what's going on in Genshin at the moment. Xianyun's setting all these records. After seeing that, can you really say that with confidence? Think about it for a minute. This is the CN iOS market. The player base that's actually taken the protest seriously enough to take meaningful action towards change. Ain't no shot that market is the one setting records for Xianyun. That's not the worst of it. Bootstrapping like this isn't something you do when things are great with the company. It's an ill omen. And I'm not just spitballing baseless claims, I've got the data to back it up. Here, I've charted the Sensor Tower reported revenue for Hoyo's games since December of 2022. The green line is the combined revenue for all three games. As you can see, the revenue was pretty stable until the launch of Honkai Star Rail, and it saw a huge spike. but that spike immediately fell off. They were doing a little better than before for a while, but things steadily tapered off, until we get to last month where Hoyo is doing worse than they were before the launch of Honkai Star Rail. I know what you're thinking, big deal, that's still tens of millions of dollars. You're missing the forest through the trees. They're now running another game that has its own employees, marketing, and maintenance, and they're making less than they were when it was just Genshin. Look at this like you're an investor. It's not a good sign to see the company you have a stake in lose money, and when profit margins drop, investors get spooked. When investors get spooked, companies die. And we've seen the consequences. You remember 3.0? Genshin was everywhere. Where was all that marketing for 4.0? Well, it's tough to do marketing for 2 games when you're bleeding profits. Now, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. It wasn't clickbait. I'm about to prove to you that whales don't carry Genshin, and it makes sense when you take any amount of time to actually think about it. Let's take a look at Genshin since the launch of Star Rail. Notice anything odd? Sales are way down. But wait a minute. What about all those C6, R5, Nuvalet, Risley, Farina, and Navia showcases? The whales came out for those banners. I'd hate to do this to you, but if you want proof and to be peer pressured into endlessly grinding artifacts, all you have to do is look at Akasha and see just how many have submitted builds for Solo Abyss for those characters. If whales carried Genshin, sales would not be so much lower than they were in 3.0. But it's gacha. Gacha equals carried by whales, not Genshin. Do you know what the biggest thing that separates Genshin from other gachas? The ceiling for whales is much lower. How many copies of Raiden can I have on my team? How many copies of Raiden can I get before getting more copies does nothing? Other gachas' method to get you to spend money rely on getting endless copies of a character or weapon until a few weeks later when they power creep them. They've got no problem giving out the character for free because just having the character is never enough. That's just the first step. In Genshin, every limited 5-star but Dia is complete at C0. You'll never need another copy, and you can be fairly confident they'll just continue to get better as new characters, weapons, and artifacts are released. Cons are just a flex. The product in Genshin is the base character. Sidetrack to talk directly to Tectone again. I don't know who you've been talking to, but Hu Tao has not been power crept. She's still the queen of Vaporize, and Homa is still the most ridiculously overtuned weapon in the game. If you still don't want to believe me about whales not carrying the game, just look at the banner sales. The top of the charts are all reruns. You know who doesn't pull on reruns? The Giga Whales everyone thinks carry the game because they've already wailed on the characters and weapons the first time around. Let me ask a question to everyone like me that wasn't around for the launch of Genshin. When you first started playing the game, did you also look up guides and just clicked on the ones with the most views? Because that's the best case scenario for Hoyo. That's how you get schmucks like me to see videos saying, Vici is a triple S tier must pull. Nobody will ever come close to being as good as him. He will always reign at the top of the meta. During 2.6. And then schmucks like me say, oh, well, if he's that insane, he might actually be worth buying one of those double reward top-ups. That's the best case scenario for Hoyo. Someone not understanding the game and being convinced to pull by outdated videos. The model preys on the assumption that players that don't know any better, that whales carry the game. And don't think you're getting off clean either, Honkai Star Rail. I'm coming for you too. Despite the fact that Honkai Star Rail gets everything Genshin players ask for, Honkai Star Rail has had some trying times. In particular, right after Sealess Banner. I have no idea how anyone can look at the Honkai Star Rail sales and get the takeaway, yeah, they're doing so much better than Genshin. All of the incredible things Hoyo has done for that game hasn't really shown a return on that investment. But Honkai Star Rail players, that's not your fault. It's because the biggest lie Hoyo wants you to believe, that Genshin players are loyal fans. They just aren't. And Hoyo learned that lesson the hard way. When they dropped Honkai Star Rail, Genshin sales plummeted and Honkai Star Rail exceeded anything Genshin had ever done. But something unexpected happened. Instead of coming back to Genshin or switching to Honkai Star Rail, that player base that gave Honkai Star Rail the kickstart it needed left both games. Honkai Star Rail's tanked and Genshin's didn't recover. HSR players, the thing you've got to know is that the reason you and Honkai Impact 3rd players are rewarded so well is because you're loyal. It's to keep you loyal. Hoyo knows Genshin players aren't loyal, so they don't do things like expand the endgame and make events replayable that bring us to the crux of the issue and the reason why I am protesting. Hoyo doesn't bother to improve Genshin because they don't think we're worth it. They are undervaluing us as consumers. They're undervaluing the content creators that give their product free promotion. They don't show us respect because they don't think we deserve it. That's a terrible way to run a business. If they don't shape up, I'll be real. Zenless Zone Zero might be the death of Hoyoverse if things go the same way they did after the launch of Star Rail. And I don't want that to happen. I love this game. It ticks all the boxes in my head that make me excited to keep playing a game. But hey, a protest means nothing if there's no table to meet at. So here's what I want to see. I know my opinion doesn't represent everyone's. Just know you have every reason to want the changes you want. But I'm just going to talk about the changes I think are most important. 1. Publicly acknowledge the discontent. Apologize for the lack of transparency and the disrespectful way you have treated your consumers. 2. Make a statement of a plan of action, including a change of leadership. I personally will never have my faith restored with the company if I do not see that happen. 3. Remove AR content locks. And I know that people are going to hate me for saying this. Allow AR30 and the Inazuma Archon quest to be unlocked via purchase. You depend on new and casual players for your revenue, and the game is too damn big to expect them to play the game long enough to catch up. Every open world live service game eventually has to come to terms with this. 4. Make events replayable. Your devs, writers, and artists work too damn hard for their work to be Una's honest away after 2 weeks. And being able to replay some of the combat events is at least a band-aid for players' concerns about the endgame. Before I go, a few other interesting things I discovered while looking over the data. Surely you've heard this. Genshin got all of its success during the COVID boom. I mean, not according to the data. Genshin didn't really start seeing consistent growth until post-COVID. And that makes sense. People didn't have money during COVID. Of course you're going to make more money when consumers are actually able to work. On a related note to that, I remember prior to 3.0 seeing a bunch of videos saying the game was dying. No idea where that came from. If you look at their quarterly growth during that time, the only dip was still higher than their revenue at launch. Note, the dip at the end is pretty exaggerated because it's just the month of January. If we switch over to monthly, we can see the dip is still there, but it's not nearly as bad. Had I not included it, it would have shown growth, but that wasn't the case. Once again, it'd be incredible if you'd all join me in my digital sit-in. Log into the game, drop graphic settings to lowest to minimize your RAM usage, change your name and signature to something that shows your discontent. Don't spend any money and just leave the game up. Force them to notice us. Encourage anyone who asks about it to do the same. 1-star review them on the Play Store, App Store, and Epic. The only thing stopping Hoyo from taking us seriously is the presumption that that is true. Bye!